This is our second day of the conference. We have 258 delegates. These are human rights defenders and peace advocates from 26 countries who have arrived to attend the first international conference on human rights and peace in the Philippines. Prior to the conference proper, a number of the delegates attended solidarity missions in various parts of the countries to learn of the situation on the ground.
What we've learned is that there have been no prosecutions for human rights violations under the president, no prosecutions on one side. On the other side, no army or military discipline, and indeed promotion for those who have been involved. We see the problem of human rights as really deteriorating under the present regime. The last point I'd like to make, and I think this is really important, is the power and wealth of the dynasties in this country. The president talked about going to the root causes of corruption and other social problems in this country. But he has, despite the fact that the Constitution outlaws dynasties, they exist, and the recent election demonstrates that they are becoming more powerful.
We were able to go to Mindanao. That's where I went to visit. Specifically, we went to Talaingud, and we also went to Paquibato. And I want to show you the first thing that we saw when we went to Paquibato. We weren't there for less than 5 minutes, and this is what we saw. We saw the military and civilian clothing, or intelligence officers, we don't know who they are, taking pictures of the people that when we arrived, and taking pictures trying to intimidate the people. And you know, we weren't there for 5 minutes and we saw this already. That's why I think that when the people that spoke to us told us the stories about harassment, told us the stories about intimidation, told us the stories about repression, we obviously believed them. I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like what the people were telling me, because I saw the traumatic impact, especially on the children. I'm a school teacher, so I deal with children every day. And I saw some of the members of our delegation, I saw the impact that it had on the children. And the children had arguments within themselves about the war. The children said, you know, that they were afraid. So I see the psychological impact that the militarization has on children, and that's very, very disappointing. What I know is that when I go back to the United States, I have the responsibility now to educate not only my immediate community, but I will continue to work with the different Filipino American organizations in Los Angeles and in California to continue to educate the community and to educate also our elected officials. We know that a senator in California, Barbara Boxer, has already opened up a hearing of investigation for the extrajudicial killings in the Philippines. We will go back, we will report, we will take pictures, we will take video and the testimonies that we have collected, and we will educate our senators, our representatives, any local officials that we can, to let them know about what's happening. That I can promise you. And we'll do whatever we can to help out as international observers, as delegates, as friends of the Filipino people, to try to put pressure on the Aquino government to stop the repression, to stop the human rights violations that are taking place here in the Philippines. Thank you.
I was shocked to understand the level of impunity still being engaged with by the Filipino government. This is my third visit to the Philippines, and on each occasion, the level of oppression increases, not decreases, against those who are legitimately engaged in the protection and representation of the vulnerable, the dispossessed, and the poor. In a modern society, it should be that impunity decreases, accountability increases, but sadly that is not the case under the current government. In fact, Human Rights Watch yesterday in a press release stated that they called for this government, the Aquino government, to end impunity and extrajudicial killing and to prosecute the state authorities responsible for the security forces' violations of human rights in the rural communities, and to end the funding of private armies. But From what I've seen and what I have heard in the Philippines, it is the security of the economic, social and political rights of the Philippine people that is the only national security that this government should be concerned with, as opposed to the national security as a concept used by the US to justify its so-called war on terror. And it's that concept of national security, the security of economic and social rights, that the President should put at the heart of his State of the Nation address on.
And so as a US-based organization, we are very concerned about the continued US intervention in the Philippines and the involvement of the Philippines in possible US military action in the region. US troops' presence in the bases run counter to the spirit of the prohibition on the presence of US troops and facilities in the Constitution of the Philippines. The rotation of US troops is irrelevant. We are also concerned that the bases could serve as launching pads for US drones that have already led to the deaths of thousands of people in the Middle East and South Asia, including significant numbers of civilians, and which are operated in an atmosphere of illegality, secrecy.
Part of the neoliberal economic model requires the growth of military spending. That's one of the ways that the market economy remains strong, not in producing things that are good for people, but in selling arms and weapons and so on. So you have this circle. Human rights is related to the violation of human rights is related to the imposition of an economic model. The economic model is defended by military. This is a deal between the forces like the United States in terms of how they see their influence in the whole world. And here, the Philippines government is playing a double role. One is as part of the worldwide plan in the pivot to Asia, the focus on China, but the other is internally defending also the rights not of the people, but of the transnational corporations, out of the idea that by attracting companies like mining companies from my own country, Canada, at the expense of the rights of indigenous people, that this will somehow create more wealth and prosperity for Filipinos. And we know throughout the world, I can see it in Colombia, in other places in Latin America, in Africa, throughout Asia, that these extraction industries rob the people of their resources, destroy the environment, lead to a militarization of their situation, and give the people nothing.